In the small town of Maplewood, Alabama, life seemed to flow at a gentle, predictable pace. This tranquility, however, masked the undercurrents of dissatisfaction and unrest that simmered just beneath the surface of its seemingly perfect families. Among these families were the Adams, who were often viewed as a model of stability and success in the tight-knit community. Lily Adams, at 35 years old, was a high school English teacher at Maplewood High School. Lily's reputation in town was impeccable. She was known for her dedication to her students and her genuine interest in their personal growth. Her calm demeanor and soft-spoken manner made her a favorite among the students and parents alike. However, despite her outwardly perfect life, Lily struggled with a growing sense of discontent. Her marriage to Mark Adams, a 40-year-old lawyer, had become strained over the years. Mark's demanding career frequently kept him away from home, and his long hours and preoccupation with work had created an emotional distance between them. Lily, once vibrant and hopeful, found herself feeling increasingly isolated and unfulfilled. Mark was a well-respected figure in Maplewood, known for his sharp legal mind and his commitment to his clients. He was often praised for his professional success, but this success came at the cost of his personal relationships. His frequent absences and focus on his career left Lily feeling neglected and undervalued. The emotional gap between them grew wider with each passing year, and Lily's sense of frustration and loneliness deepened. Ethan Johnson, an 18-year-old senior at Maplewood High School, was a new addition to Lily's English class. Ethan was a bright, ambitious young man with a promising future ahead of him. His charisma and intelligence made him stand out, and he quickly became a favorite among his teachers. Despite his outward confidence, Ethan struggled with a sense of inadequacy. Coming from a modest background, he often felt overshadowed by his more affluent peers and yearned for validation and recognition. Ethan's arrival in Lily's class was fortuitous for both of them. For Lily, Ethan represented a breath of fresh air, a student who was eager to engage and excel. For Ethan, Lily was a mentor who seemed genuinely interested in his growth and success. Their initial interactions were friendly and professional, but there was an undercurrent of something deeper, a connection that neither fully understood but both felt acutely. One crisp autumn afternoon, the status quo began to shift. Ethan approached Lily after class with a stack of essays he had written, seeking feedback. Their conversation was friendly and respectful, but there was a spark in Ethan's eyes that Lily couldn't ignore. She found herself drawn to his enthusiasm and the way he spoke about his dreams and ambitions. Ethan, in turn, was captivated by Lily's passion for literature and her genuine concern for his well-being. As the weeks went by, Ethan began to seek Lily's guidance more frequently. He stayed after class to discuss his essays, his future plans, and his personal struggles. Lily, who was already feeling unfulfilled in her personal life, found herself increasingly drawn to these interactions. They became a source of comfort and escape from her growing discontent at home. The catalyst for change arrived in the form of a new student, Jessica Walker, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. Jessica had recently moved back to Maplewood after a brief stint in another town. She was known for her fiery temperament and her close ties with Ethan. Her return to Maplewood was marked by tension and unresolved feelings, which made her a disruptive force in Ethan's life. Jessica's reappearance in town was a significant disruption. Her presence stirred up old feelings and conflicts, and she quickly sensed the growing bond between Ethan and Lily. Jessica's jealousy and suspicion grew as she noticed the increasing frequency of Ethan's visits to Lily's classroom and the special attention he received. Her confrontations with Ethan became more frequent and more heated, adding strain to Ethan's already fragile emotional state. One evening, as the sun set over Maplewood, Ethan and Lily shared a quiet moment in the school library, discussing his latest assignment. The warmth of the conversation and the genuine connection they felt seemed to transport them away from their respective troubles. Yet this moment of calm was punctuated by a knock on the door. Jessica stood there, her expression a mix of anger and betrayal. She had followed Ethan, driven by her suspicions and a growing sense of injustice. The confrontation that followed was tense. Jessica's accusations and Ethan's defensive reactions were a sharp contrast to the previously serene atmosphere. Lily, caught off guard and feeling a surge of anxiety, tried to defuse the situation. However, Jessica's anger and Ethan's distress created a volatile mix that neither Lily nor Ethan had anticipated. The appearance of Jessica marked a turning point. Her presence introduced a new layer of complexity to the already fragile dynamics between Lily and Ethan. The once innocent mentor-student relationship had begun to blur, and the boundaries of their interactions were now under scrutiny. Lily and Ethan's secret bond was at risk of being exposed, and the emotional weight of their situation became increasingly difficult to bear. As the chapter closed, the seeds of conflict and tension had been sown. The perfect facade of the Addams family and the promising future of Ethan Johnson were on the verge of unraveling. The quiet town of Maplewood was about to witness a dramatic shift, driven by hidden desires, unresolved conflicts, and the inevitable consequences of their choices. The next chapters would delve deeper into the fallout from this moment, exploring the dark and unpredictable path that lay ahead for Lily, Ethan, and everyone caught in their orbit. As the weeks unfolded following Jessica Walker's return to Maplewood, the once subtle undercurrents between Lily Addams and Ethan Johnson grew into a turbulent maelstrom. Their relationship, initially innocent, had evolved into a clandestine affair that neither of them fully understood but both were deeply entangled in. The intensity of their connection grew as their secret meetings became more frequent and their emotional reliance on each other deepened. Ethan and Lily's secret rendezvous were carefully orchestrated to avoid suspicion. They met in the secluded corners of the local park after school, in the dimly lit back room of the library, or at Lily's house when Mark was away on business. These moments of privacy were charged with an urgency that stemmed from their fear of exposure and their growing passion. Their meetings often took place under the cover of night. On one such evening, Lily and Ethan found themselves in the park, their usual spot by the old oak tree. The crisp autumn air and the rustling of leaves created a serene backdrop for their heated conversations. They spoke in hushed tones, their words blending with the sounds of the night. Their discussions ranged from Ethan's aspirations to Lily's dissatisfaction with her marriage, but beneath the surface lay a palpable tension. Each touch, each glance, carried the weight of their forbidden connection. Yet their secrecy was fraught with constant danger. One evening, as Lily and Ethan were caught in an intimate moment, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness. They froze, their hearts pounding as a car drove past. They held their breath, waiting for the vehicle to disappear into the distance before they dared to resume their conversation. The fear of being caught heightened their paranoia, making each secret meeting feel like a high-stakes game. The appearance of Jessica Walker had exacerbated their anxiety. Jessica's suspicion grew with each passing day, fueled by her jealousy and frustration. She began to notice Ethan's increasingly erratic behavior, and her anger mounted. Jessica confronted Ethan multiple times, demanding answers and threatening to reveal what she perceived as a betrayal. Ethan, driven by a mixture of guilt and desperation, tried to placate her, but his attempts only added to the tension between them. One afternoon, Ethan and Jessica had a particularly explosive confrontation in the school hallway. Jessica had intercepted Ethan during lunch, her voice rising as she accused him of lying to her and hiding something from her. Ethan's attempts to deflect her questions were futile, and their argument drew the attention of a few passing students. Lily, who happened to be nearby, saw the commotion and felt a surge of panic. She quickly intervened, trying to calm the situation, but the incident left her rattled and fearful of what might come next. Ethan's relationship with Jessica continued to deteriorate, and Jessica's paranoia only intensified. She began to follow Ethan and Lily, tracking their movements and trying to catch them in the act. One evening, while Ethan and Lily were meeting at the library, Jessica slipped in unnoticed and hid behind a row of bookshelves. She watched as Ethan and Lily talked animatedly, their closeness and chemistry evident even from a distance. Jessica's anger boiled over, and she began to formulate a plan to expose their affair. The strain of their secret life began to take a toll on both Lily and Ethan. Lily's marriage with Mark was fraying at the edges, and her once steady demeanor became increasingly frazzled. Mark had grown suspicious of Lily's late nights and sudden absences. He confronted her one evening, his frustration evident. "You're not yourself lately," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "What's going on?" Lily, caught off guard, struggled to maintain her composure. She deflected Mark's questions with vague explanations and half-truths, but her unease only deepened. The cracks in her facade were becoming more visible, and she knew it was only a matter of time before Mark discovered the truth. Ethan, on the other hand, was grappling with his own turmoil. The pressure of keeping the affair a secret, coupled with Jessica's relentless pursuit, was causing him to act out impulsively. One day, after a particularly tense encounter with Jessica, Ethan lost his temper and shouted at her in a public place. The scene attracted attention, and rumors began to spread among their peers. The possibility of their affair being exposed grew more tangible with each passing day. In their desperation to keep their relationship hidden, Lily and Ethan became increasingly reckless. They took greater risks, meeting in more secluded and risky locations. One night, they decided to meet at an abandoned cabin on the outskirts of town, a place they hoped would offer them the privacy they craved. The cabin was isolated, with only the sound of crickets and the occasional rustle of the wind breaking the silence. As they settled into the cabin, their conversation took a more intimate turn. The emotional and physical intensity of their relationship reached new heights, but their sense of security was shattered when they heard a car approaching. Panic set in, and Lily and Ethan scrambled to hide, their hearts racing as the vehicle's headlights illuminated the area. They held their breath, hoping that whoever was outside would leave without discovering them. The car parked nearby, and Jessica stepped out, her face a mask of determination. She had followed Ethan, convinced that she would finally catch him in the act. Lily and Ethan's hearts pounded as they heard Jessica's footsteps approaching the cabin. They quickly gathered their belongings and made their way to a hidden exit, narrowly avoiding detection. The encounter left them shaken and on edge, knowing that their secret was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. The mounting pressure and fear of exposure led to irrational behavior. Ethan's desperation to protect his relationship with Lily and his fear of Jessica's threats pushed him to make dangerous decisions. The affair, which had once been a source of solace, had become a source of constant anxiety and paranoia. As the chapter drew to a close, the tension between Lily, Ethan, and Jessica reached a boiling point. The risk of exposure loomed large, and the emotional strain of their secret lives was taking a toll on each of them. The once hidden affair was now on the brink of being exposed, and the consequences of their actions were becoming increasingly inevitable. The stage was set for a dramatic escalation, and the fragile balance they had maintained was poised to unravel completely. The tension that had been building between Lily Adams, Ethan Johnson, and Jessica Walker reached its apex on a chilly November evening. The struggle to maintain their secrets had become unbearable, and the sense of impending disaster loomed large. The fragile equilibrium of their lives was on the brink of collapse, and the night's events would forever alter their fates. Lily and Ethan had arranged to meet at the abandoned cabin on the outskirts of town once again. They were seeking refuge from the mounting pressure, desperate for a moment of peace amidst the chaos. Their relationship had become a source of both solace and anguish, and they hoped that this secluded location would provide a temporary escape. As they arrived at the cabin, the usual mix of excitement and anxiety accompanied them. They were aware that their meetings were risky, but the allure of their forbidden connection was too strong to resist. Ethan's recent encounters with Jessica had made him more paranoid, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Lily, too, was on edge, her growing sense of guilt and fear clouding her judgment. The cabin was dimly lit by a few flickering candles that Lily had brought along. The warmth of their brief respite was shattered when they heard the unmistakable sound of a car engine approaching. Panic surged through them as they recognized the vehicle's headlights piercing through the cabin's dusty windows. Jessica, having tracked Ethan once again, had followed him to the cabin. Her anger and determination to expose the affair had reached a fever pitch. She parked her car and approached the cabin with a sense of purpose, her mind racing with thoughts of revenge and betrayal. Lily and Ethan scrambled to hide, their breaths coming in rapid gasps. They quickly extinguished the candles and tried to find a place to conceal themselves. As Jessica's footsteps grew closer, the tension in the cabin became almost unbearable. The door creaked open and Jessica stepped inside, her expression a mixture of fury and determination. "What are you two doing here?" Jessica's voice was sharp, echoing through the darkened room. She had spotted a faint glow from the remaining candlelight and knew she had found them. The confrontation that followed was explosive. Ethan emerged from his hiding place, his face pale and strained. "Jessica, you need to leave," he said, his voice trembling. "This isn't what you think." Jessica's eyes burned with anger. "I knew you were hiding something," she spat. "I knew it all along, and now you're going to pay for it." Lily, feeling the weight of the situation, stepped forward, trying to calm Jessica. "Please, Jessica, just calm down," she pleaded. "This isn't the way to handle this." but Jessica's rage was uncontrollable. She lunged at Ethan, and a struggle ensued. The confrontation quickly escalated, and the cabin, once a sanctuary, became a battleground. In the chaos, Jessica's anger turned violent. She shoved Ethan hard, and he stumbled backwards, crashing into a nearby wooden table. The table tipped over, sending a heavy metal lamp crashing to the floor. Jessica's fury was matched by Ethan's desperation. He tried to fend off Jessica's advances, but his movements were frantic and uncoordinated. Lily, witnessing the escalating violence, tried to intervene, but her attempts only added to the chaos. In a moment of sheer panic, she reached for a nearby object, an old iron fireplace poker, and swung it towards Jessica in an effort to stop the violence. The poker connected with Jessica's head with a sickening thud. Jessica crumpled to the floor, her body twitching slightly before becoming still. The room fell silent, the once violent confrontation replaced by an eerie calm. Lily and Ethan stared in horror at the scene before them, their breaths coming in short, ragged gasps. The reality of what had just happened hit them like a freight train. Jessica was dead, and the gravity of the situation sank in. Panic set in as they realized the magnitude of their actions. The affair that had once been a source of passion and excitement had now led to a tragic and unthinkable outcome. Without a word, Lily and Ethan scrambled to clean up the scene. They gathered Jessica's belongings, wiped down the poker, and any other evidence of their struggle. The once innocent cabin now bore the marks of their desperate attempt to conceal their crime. They moved quickly, their movements frantic and uncoordinated, as they tried to erase any trace of what had transpired. With the scene cleaned as best they could, Lily and Ethan fled the cabin, their hearts pounding as they drove away in the darkness. The enormity of their actions left them both shaken and numb, their once intimate connection now overshadowed by the gravity of what they had done. The investigation into Jessica's death began almost immediately. Her parents, frantic over her disappearance, reported her missing. The police launched a search, and the abandoned cabin was soon discovered. The scene they found was disturbing. An abandoned cabin with signs of a violent struggle, but no immediate evidence pointing to the identity of the perpetrators. The investigation quickly turned towards Ethan and Lily. Their erratic behavior and the rumors circulating among the townspeople drew the attention of law enforcement. The police conducted interviews and gathered evidence, piecing together the details of the night Jessica had died. Ethan's increasingly erratic behavior and Lily's nervousness did not go unnoticed. The police found inconsistencies in their alibis and began to scrutinize their activities more closely. Forensic evidence, including traces of blood and fingerprints on the poker, began to paint a clearer picture of the events of that night. As the investigation progressed, the truth about Lily and Ethan's affair came to light. Witnesses testified about their secret relationship, and the police uncovered the motive behind the violent confrontation. The once hidden affair had led to a tragic and public unraveling. In court, Lily and Ethan faced the full weight of justice. The trial was a media spectacle, with the small town of Maplewood watching in shock as the details of the affair and the murder were revealed. The emotional testimony from Jessica's family and the forensic evidence presented a damning case against them. Lily and Ethan were found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to prison. Lily received a life sentence, while Ethan was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. The once idealized lives of the Addams family and Ethan Johnson were shattered, and the small town of Maplewood was left to grapple with the consequences of their actions. As the gavel came down and the sentences were pronounced, the reality of their situation hit Lily and Ethan with full force. Their affair had led to a devastating tragedy, and their once promising futures had been forever altered by their actions. The chapter closed on a somber note, with the characters facing the repercussions of their choices and the harsh reality of their situation.